So this title didn't just come overnight. I know a lot of you guys are taller than me, and we all look very similar, which may not be something that might happen out in the workforce for us, unfortunately. But my story started in year 10, and I was chatting to some of the girls, and I feel like a lot of them related to this, how I didn't really want to be there. Who can relate to that? Not really want to be? Yeah, cool. So if you don't want to be at school, you're going to have to be somewhere else. And that somewhere else is going to have to be taking you forward somewhere. So when I was in year 10, I did work experience in my school holidays. So I didn't have a program like this at the time. So I was in year 10 in 2011. So I knew that I didn't want to be at school. I knew I wanted to do something to, make myself go forward. So I ended up doing work experience at all of my school holidays, and some of the girls were like, how do you get work experience? You literally get your resume and go to a workplace that you think might be cool and be like, hey guys, can I do work experience here? And that's how I got some work experience. I ended up doing work experience at 4 different workshops, mostly motorcycle workshops, and then I did work experience at one heavy vehicle equipment place. So I did that at Cummins in Wetherall Park, and I loved it. I loved knowing that I knew what was happening inside of those big trucks. I knew I was going to learn how that engine worked, I was going to be able to fix them, and that just really, really excited me, like way more than school, But I was just like, yes, this is what I want to learn, and I want to learn as much as I can about this. So the year after that, I started my apprenticeship. I was 15 at the time, and it was a very different environment to school. There was a lot of men, pretty much. There was one other female in the workshop who actually looked quite similar to me. She was similar height to me. She was actually blonde as well. So with that I had someone that looked like me in there. But we were in different teams, and I was working a lot with men. So I had to find my voice. So I was really quiet. So now I can talk comfortably in front of everyone, quite loudly. But I could barely hold a conversation when I started my apprenticeship. And as an apprentice, you have to ask lots of questions, because that's how you learn. A lot of apprenticeships, every apprenticeship, you're learning off the people who come before you, off the masters. So like your TAFE teachers, they've all done a trade and they're passing their knowledge on to you. And you learn that in the workforce. But the people in the workforce aren't qualified teachers. Their sole purpose isn't to teach you. Their sole purpose is to do their job, and you're alongside kind of trying to get as much information out of their brain as you possibly can. And the best way to do that is by asking lots of questions. No question is a silly question, trust me. There are some questions that I wish I asked, that I didn't, that turned out to be quite an expensive repair. So I would recommend asking all the questions. And in that process of my apprenticeship, I did a lot of things that frightened me. A lot of things that I never, ever thought I was going to be able to do. Who's done something in this program that they thought they would never do? Yeah? We got some hands? Nice. All right, at the back, what's one of those things that you did? Cutting the metal? And how did you find that? Was that scary at the beginning?
Well, there was a lot of sharp blades.
Yeah? And how did you feel after you learned how to do that?
Alright.
Do you reckon you could do it again? Yeah, nice. All right, who else put their hand up? Yeah, what did you learn? What did you do?
Probably the fire thingy, like it sprints out like little sparks.
Yeah.
It kind of scared me.
Plasma cutting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like terrible. I was like, I want to get back away from it.
But how did you feel after you learned how to do that?
Terrified, because I didn't have my heart just feels like it's coming out.
Alright, so maybe you might need to give that one a few more goes before you get a bit confident at it?
Don't.
Alright.
My heart was jumping out again.
So for me, a lot of the things where I learnt the most were the things that terrified the hell out of me. And one of those things is an engine rebuild. So when I was in the similar position to you, kind of in school, I never ever thought that I was going to be able to rebuild an engine on a truck that pulls like heaps of trailers like across the country. That just like, didn't even cross my mind. But when I was a second year apprentice, I was 17 at the time, I was the first of my apprentice year group to do an engine rebuild on my own. So it was a 15-litre engine, so pretty much if you stood next to the engine while it was on a stand, it was about this big as well. So fairly large engine, and I had done little bits and pieces of it before with tradespeople. So I was, standing alongside them, asking them lots of questions, And now my supervisor's like, yeah, you know what, I think you know enough. Here you go. Here's your own truck. We've got a little bit of extra time on it, so take your time, ask the questions, and do it all. And I was like, oh my God, this person who I look up to so much trusts me to rebuild this $40,000 engine. Like, it was a big moment for me. And from there, you know, I did it all on my own. I did all the little bits and pieces that I had learned with tradespeople on my own. I stripped the engine, I cleaned all the parts, I, you know, inspected all the parts, did my parts list, ordered everything, and then I started to put it all together. I did my bearing roll on my own. So did you guys tension any bolts or anything like that during the course? No. Alright, so my references won't make sense. Anyway, so the bolts have to go up pretty tight, and I'm a pretty little person, and laying underneath the truck, I had to tighten all these bearings, and I had to brace my body in different ways to make it work for me, because I was not going to ask anyone for help. I was going to ask, wait, how to do it, but I was going to physically do everything myself. So I went through that, I did my bearing roll, I put the cylinder head on, I did the engine timing and everything all myself. And I've come to starting the engine. So if you ever have started a car or a truck before that's been apart and you've worked on it, it's quite nerve-wracking because you're like, I hope it happens when I turn the key, I hope the magic happens and it runs. And after you start an engine after a rebuild, you have to watch all the gauges to make sure the oil pressure comes up. So I'm sitting in the cab of this little truck or this big truck, and I'm a little person and I can barely see out of the windscreen because I'm so small. So I had a few other people around me to try to look at the engine as well as it was starting up. Started the engine, started first go. Oil pressure went up and it was running. And it was the best feeling that I had ever experienced. I had learned all this stuff that I never even imagined, and now I've totally stripped out an engine, put it back together, and it's running. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. But if I hadn't asked all the questions to the tradespeople, if I hadn't put myself out there, if I hadn't walked around with my resume and was like, hey guys, can you take me for work experience, I never would have had that experience. That experience has led to a whole heap of other things that have come on my journey. So I'm now 25. I started my apprenticeship when I was 15. I'm now 25. I have represented Australia in heavy vehicle mechanics at the International WorldSkills competition. So that is a whole story on its own. But the WorldSkills competition, if you do go through TAFE, is something that I recommend you put your hand up for if you come to. It's pretty much a tradie competition where no matter what trade you decide to go in, there should be a competition in it. And you pretty much are judged on the excellence level of your skill. I competed regionally, nationally, and internationally, and I've currently come full circle, and I'm now chief judge of the national competition for heavy vehicle mechanics. So, thank you. If I hadn't put myself out there and done things that totally frightened the hell out of me, and continue to do so, so now currently I'm chief judge. And one of the members of my judging team actually started his apprenticeship before my dad was born. So the way that I've come around, and I respect them, I respect everyone's knowledge because you can't possibly know everything. I will never know everything. Guys who have been in the trade 50 years, I had a mentor in my apprenticeship who had literally been on the tools for 50 years, and he still didn't know everything. And I respected him so much because he knew that if you recognize that you can't possibly ever know everything and leave yourself open to opportunities to learn, then you will get the respect of those people who started their apprenticeship before your dad was born. And that has been an amazing experience to realize, to sit there and have this conversation with this person and have their respect. It really lets me, I sit there and I think, I did this. This was me going out and doing all these really, really, really frightening things. And I've come to this point. And you know what? I'm not going to stop doing things that scare me because I have heaps more things to learn and heaps more areas that I want to go into. But if I hadn't taken that first step with my resume, knocking on people's doors, being like, hey guys, can you take me for work experience? It never would have happened. I would never be here sharing my story to you guys, hoping that, whatever you guys do, whether it's in the trades, out of the trades, just keep moving forward and keep doing things that frighten you because you'll really go on a path that you enjoy and you'll really value yourself and what you're doing, because you'll be like, shit, I did that really, really scary thing. Alright guys, so I hope you enjoyed my little presentation. I'd love for you guys to connect with me on any platform that you like. I have a lot of things to say. As you can tell, I'm confidently standing up here talking to you without any notes. I actually have a YouTube channel sharing some of my journey and little things that I've learnt along the way. Pardon?
How many subs?
I've only got 43. Alright, I'm counting.
How do you increase that?
No, but I'd love for you guys to check it out. I share different things that I learn along the way, and you'd often find that if I talk to you guys now and you guys ask any questions, what we talk about will often be in my videos, so then other people in a similar position to you have the answers to those questions, those scary questions of like, how do I even get an apprenticeship? I can talk to you guys all day about different tactics to get an apprenticeship, and I would actually be honoured and love to if you guys wanted to. Thank you.
I think one of the things that really occurred to me as Louise was talking, and thank you so much for sharing your story, was it's not so much about girls doing different types of trades, it's about any young person really getting out there and putting themselves forward and really engaging in, actively seeking something that they want to do. And that bravery really came through very strongly there. And obviously it's paid off, which is fantastic. And those steps, they're scary. Even going and knocking on somebody's door and saying, can I come and do work experience? That can be really scary, especially if you don't know anybody. So it's about bravery, about taking the next step, about really putting yourself out there. And as a young person, that's hard, but I know that you guys can do it. I'm now going to ask Natasha to come and say a few words to you as well. Thanks, Natasha.
Hello guys, my name's Natasha. I'm 23 years of age.